to Stenbocki House. Today we had a meeting of the President of the European Commission, Mr. José Manuel Barroso, and the three Baltic Prime Ministers. Mr. President and Prime Ministers are ready to take your questions, but before that I'd like to give them the floor for a short statement. Prime Minister of Estonia, Mr. Taavi Rõivas, please.
Good morning, everybody. I'm very happy to welcome President of the European Commission, José Manuel Barroso, as well as my colleagues from Latvia and Lithuania, Laindotas Raujuma and Algirdas Butkevičius. Welcome to Tallinn at the eve of the Midsummer Day, one of the biggest celebrations of the year for us Northerners. One of the best news of our gathering here in Tallinn was the announcement from Brussels that the partnership agreements for us all three countries have been adopted by the Commission. The agreements, together with the following operational programs, enabled us to use European funds and to invest in our people and economy. We talked about some regional projects that we are pursuing with the help of the Commission and personally President Barroso, and we three Prime Ministers were able to report to the President that the work of the Rail Baltic Task Force has been completed, and we are in the schedule to file our tender in the first round of the Connecting Europe facility. I would even say that we have reached the next level of cooperation in Rail Baltic, and I'm really proud of that, and I really am thankful for my colleagues, both from Latvia and Lithuania, and also, of course, the Commission. We, of course, talked about the Ukraine-Russia crisis. The situation is further deteriorating, and Europe has achieved much in response to this aggression by Russia to its neighboring country, but we expect the Foreign Affairs Council and the European Council next week to take the response further. Signing the deep and comprehensive free trade agreement with Ukraine and association agreements with Moldova and Georgia next Friday will be one, but only one part of this response. This brings me to one of the very important topics on today's political agenda in Europe, a topic we intend to discuss at lunch today, which we will have shortly after this press conference. The work program of the next Commission and the nominations. At this stage, in addition to my support to Jean-Claude Juncker as the successor of President Barroso, I say only that the Ukraine-Russia crisis has brought back geopolitics in European foreign policy, and it has made clear to us that at least one of the top positions must go to somebody who has good knowledge and understanding of the geopolitical challenges of our part of the European continent. With those words, I give the floor to President Barroso. You have in fact been the only Commission President during our country's 10 years of membership in the Union. We have always valued very highly the cooperation with you, your commissioners and your services. You have guided Europe in this difficult time out of the storms of the economic crisis. You have also strengthened the Commission's role in the new economic governance framework, and you have also given the Union a new sense of direction with your Europe 2020 strategy. For us, it has been extremely important that you have been the driving force in integrating the new member states, the class of 2004, firmly to the Union. Huge thanks to you for that, and please, you have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Taavi. Dear Prime Ministers, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, Prime Minister, thank you very much for your extremely kind words. Indeed, as we were saying during the meeting, in 2004, we were 15 countries. Now, in 2014, we are 28. We almost doubled. And I'm so proud for the fact I've been President of the Commission during these exciting years, certainly with very big challenges and difficulties, but in fact, I believe we can say now that the European Union has progressed. And one of the great achievements of the European Union is, in fact, the contribution that the Baltic states have been making for our common project. We find here enthusiasm, we find here a good absorption of the structural funds, and your countries are now more competitive than before, and I think that it's fair to say that this also was helped to a large extent by our union. I want to congratulate all of you, your countries, for the success as very active members of the European Union. We are meeting just one day after the adoption by the European Commission of the partnership agreements between the Commission and the governments of Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania. The quick adoption of these agreements is the result of the excellent cooperation the European Commission has had with the three respective countries. It is a pleasure for me to thank once again the Prime Ministers and to congratulate them for this achievement. The agreements open up for European structural and investment funding for the 2014-2020 period. The strategies now laid down by the three Baltic states are key for the optimal use of European structural and investment funds for smart and sustainable growth. They link the new approach of the European cohesion policy and our Europe 2020 priorities. These European Union investments will help to boost growth and create lasting jobs through support to innovation, training and education, as well as a low-carbon, resource-efficient economy. So I was asked by the Prime Ministers, I was giving them now the partnership agreements through a letter, and I was asked by Prime Minister from Estonia to sign it in front of you, so full transparency. So I'm going now to sign the letter and give them the partnership agreement in front of you. Now, the first is to Prime Minister of Latvia. In my, voilà. Okay.
Thank you.
The second is to Prime Minister of Lithuania. And last but not the least, so I'm going to read what I've written in the letter. So for full transparency, dear Prime Minister, it is my pleasure to present you this partnership agreement that has been just adopted by the European Commission. I welcome Estonia's strategy for smart and sustainable growth, which link the approach to the European cohesion policy for 2014-2020 period and our Europe 2020 priorities. These EU investments will help to create lasting jobs and boost growth through support to innovation, training, education, and resource-efficient economy. Okay. So, as you see, in full transparency, I just gave now the letters that formally adopt the partnership agreements that are so important for these countries, but also so important for us in the European Union because the objectives are in fact those that we have collectively agreed. Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania are performing well in terms of absorption of European funds. Good use of these funds in the previous financial period, 2007-2013, has been a key argument to secure new investment funding in the current multi-annual financial framework. Since joining the European Union in 2004, the Baltic states have been among the best at seizing the opportunities provided by European integration. And I'm not talking only about funds. The European Union must not be reduced to a kind of cash account. EU accession firmly anchored Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania in the family of developed and democratic nations of Europe. It has brought more stability and security to everyone in the European Union. This is a particularly important fact to recall, not only because of the 10th anniversary of the 2004 enlargement, but also with the current situation in mind. The issue of regional security was obviously raised at our meeting today. I thank the Prime Ministers for their constructive contribution in finding the best way to respond to Russian actions and to the situation in Ukraine. The Baltic states here play a key role. We have been sparing no effort to address what I believe is the biggest threat to Europe's stability and security since the fall of the Berlin Wall. We continue our aid to Ukraine. This week, the European Commission disbursed 500 million euros to support Ukraine's efforts to address its major economic challenges. We have a clear, firm and unified European approach to the situation in the region. We want Russia to engage in a dialogue with Ukraine to find a negotiated, peaceful and diplomatic way out of the crisis. But it must be done in full respect of international law and the sovereignty of Ukraine. The solution to the crisis has to be political, and dialogue should be promoted. On this matter, let me say that we very much welcome the announcement by President Poroshenko of a ceasefire and a 15-point plan for the peaceful settlement of the crisis in eastern Ukraine. We commend President Poroshenko for his efforts and call on all sides to seize this long-sought opportunity to reverse the trend of an ever-worsening security and humanitarian situation in eastern Ukraine. All parties will need to abide by the conditions of the peace plan and actively promote its implementation. We in particular call on the Russian Federation to use all its influence to this end and to support this plan publicly and through concrete actions. Ladies and gentlemen, our meeting today has been also an opportunity to discuss major regional projects, and we are going to continue to discuss them afterwards in the continuation of this meeting. We all agree that the Connecting Europe facility constitutes a key instrument for the Baltic states for funding projects of common interest in the energy, transport and digital fields. It remains crucial to reach agreements on the regional projects in time, before September, so as to submit them for funding under the first call of the Connecting Europe facility. The main project is Rail Baltic, which connects the 3 Baltic states and Poland in a north-south direction. This project clearly demonstrates genuine added value of regional cooperation supported by the European Union budget. I want to congratulate once again the 3 Prime Ministers. They just addressed me a letter as well, saying that they have reached an agreement on this Rail Baltic. And it's very important because this agreement was and is certainly a precondition for the funding to implement the project. We also discussed energy security, where the implementation of projects of common interest can be substantially improved in the Baltic states. The Connecting Europe facility foresees 5.85 billion euros for the coming 7 years. This money should finance the projects that are of critical importance for the European energy security strategy. This strategy will be a key contribution of the Commission to the European Council next week, and I'm happy to count on strong support from the Baltic states to this energy security strategy. Ladies and gentlemen, the 3 Baltic member states are examples of how quickly you can emerge from a crisis and return to growth through resolute reform. But we cannot be complacent. On the contrary, we must complete what we have started. We need to tackle unemployment, finishing reforming our labor markets, make our economies more competitive. In our annual exercise, the European semester, our exercise, our partnership for economic governance, we made specific, tailor-made recommendations to the member states. For instance, for Estonia, there is a need to put priority on work capacity reforms to increase the provision of labor and open up the unused potential in the labor market. Similarly, Latvia started discussion about the health sector reform, while Lithuania is making progress in improving its energy efficiency and security. These are, I'm giving just as examples, very demanding tasks, but the Commission will do what we can to assist you in carrying them through. And in fact, we have seen in the past that these countries have been able to respond to these challenges. It's not, for me, a surprise that after Estonia joining the euro, after Latvia being able to turn around the economy, with great success and becoming now our 18th member of the euro area, that we are going to have, I hope, 1st of January 2015, Lithuania as our newest member of the euro area. These countries show that the pessimists were not right. Don't forget that 1 or 2 years ago, many analysts, many economists were predicting the implosion of the euro. They were predicting European countries leaving the euro. What we have seen is exactly the opposite. Latvia and Lithuania join or are joining the euro. Estonia has already been a part of this group as well for some time. So I really believe that the example of these countries in the Baltic are inspiring examples for all of us in Europe. I thank you for your attention.
And now I give the floor to the Latvian Prime Minister, Mrs. Laindota Straujuma.
Thank you. In the beginning, I want to thank Taivi for organization of this really useful meeting for all of us. And I am really pleased that the European Commission has adopted partnership agreement with Latvia and 6 other countries for EU funds 2014-2020. And we will do our best to continue operational programs in this summer. I really hope to your support, José Manuel, to finalize operational programs. Then Latvia has a high interest in the successful implementation of Rail Baltic project. We view the Rail Baltic project as a means for Latvia full integration with Europe rail transport infrastructure. And already planned energy projects in the Baltic Sea region, Jipul LNG terminal, Baltic connector, have become projects of strategic and security matter. And it will be really benefits that these projects financing will be in the first step within the Connecting Europe facilities. And we discussed as well, as Tavi mentioned, situation in Ukraine, and Russian actions in Ukraine have long-term negative implications on the Baltic region and European security at large. This will require long-term actions, and increasing covert defense spending is a necessity rather than a luxury. And as I want to say that in Latvia we will decide to increase spendings for our national budget for security reasons to 2% till 2020, year 2020. And yeah, it's main issues what we have discussed, Rail Baltic energy issues, and thanks for partnership agreement.
Thank you. Finally, Lithuanian Prime Minister, Mr. Algirdas Butkevičius, please.
Thank you very much. Good morning. I'm very happy about the constructive meetings this European Commission President, Mr. Barroso, and my counterparts. I'm not going to repeat what my colleagues have already said, but I only want to say that the partnership agreement approved for all 3 Baltic countries by the European Commission and today presented by its Honorable President will help increase Baltic competitiveness. This agreement defines the use of structural and investment funds for the period 2014-2020. I would like to thank the European Commission for the efficient cooperation in the negotiation process. The EU funds will enable the Baltic countries to better coordinate the region's most important projects, particularly in the areas of transport and energy. Rail Baltica is another issue of great importance, which has been discussed today. I am pleased with the achieved results the Baltic countries we have agreed on the most important issues regarding the establishment of a joint Rail Baltica company. We have signed the Prime Minister's political declaration providing for Vilnius to be connected with the other Baltic capitals. Efforts will be made to finance Vilnius connection from the European Union Connecting Europe Facilities Fund. On energy-related issues, we have agreed that, considering the present geopolitical situation in Eastern Europe, it is of vital importance to integrate into the internal EU energy market and diversify its energy sources. Our efforts in the LNG terminal project have been successful, as the terminal is scheduled to begin its operations by the end of this year. I have invited my colleagues, the Prime Ministers of Estonia and Latvia, to the opening ceremony of this terminal. The LNG terminal is extremely important, not only to Lithuania, but also for the energy security of the entire Baltic region. The capacities of Klaipėda terminal will satisfy the energy needs of Lithuania, as well as the needs of all the Baltic countries. We will be able to provide natural gas imported via the terminal of our neighbors, Latvia and Estonia. It's the guarantee for our energy independence. There are a number of regional energy projects where we have achieved good progress, such as Litpolink, the synchronization of Lithuanian, Latvian and Estonian networks with the continental Europe networks, the Klaipėda-Kėmėnai pipeline capacity increase project, and the pipeline connection between Poland and Lithuania. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I think we have time for one or two questions. Please, lady over there. Anneli.
Anneli Rõigas, AFP. I would like to ask about Ukraine, but just a short mark about what you said about the fall of Berlin Wall to be the biggest threat to Europe. Let's never forget we had the Bosnian War and we had a horrible war in Europe in the mid of 90s. The question is about Ukraine and Russia. Several EU member states have made a really good cooperation with Russia. Germany training Russian soldiers. France is currently making Mistral warships. And I would like to ask you, are you planning to change the regulations on military cooperation for EU member states? Thank you.
First of all, this is not European Commission competence. We don't have, as institution, any kind of competence in terms of military cooperation. So I'm afraid you have to ask this question to the governments themselves. What I can tell you is that regarding the Russia-Ukraine crisis, I've been participating in all the European Council meetings, and I think there is a real effort of the member states to come to a common position. It is true that regarding the relationship with Russia, there are, among 28 countries, different sensitivities, different histories, different interests as well. We know that. The perception of the situation is not exactly the same all over Europe, but I think it is fair to recognize that so far the governments of the European Union, member states, have been able to draw a very clear common position. First of all, supporting strongly Ukraine. This is our first objective, to show that Ukraine is a viable, sovereign, hopefully a democratic and prosperous state. Secondly, to show to the Russian leadership that there will be consequences to some kind of behavior they have been taking. And in fact, there are already consequences. and some restrictive measures have been adopted unanimously by the member states. Thirdly, at the same time, keeping the door open for a dialogue and diplomatic action, because we believe this is the best way to achieve a settlement for the issues that are so serious, not only for Ukraine, but for all of us here in Europe. That's why, for instance, the European Commission, with the mandate of our member states, has been trying to facilitate an agreement between Russia and Ukraine in terms of in the field of energy. So I think we have to recognize that in spite of all the natural different sensitivities, there is a consensus, I would say unanimity of the member states condemning without reservations what happened in terms of the annexation of Crimea, condemning the actions of Russia, and staying behind Ukraine at the same time, that are ready to take additional measures if necessary, while keeping the door open for a political compromise.
And one more final question, Estonian TV, please.
Okay. Tarmo Maiberg, Estonian television. You said that this is almost like shameful action by Russia, but when do you see that, do you agree that right now there should be third wave of sanctions considering Russia, because they are massing troops again, as Mr. Rasmussen from NATO said. They are trying to create security corridors inside Ukraine. There are Russian tanks burned inside Ukraine. When do you see that there is a necessity to create a third wave of sanctions? Also, to other prime ministers, to support third wave of sanctions.
Once again, I want to make clear how we work in the European Union. This is a decision for the member states. It's not the European Commission that can dictate when we should go or not go for sanctions. We received a mandate from the member states to prepare some scenarios for restrictive measures. We have done our work. It's ready. So we know now what are the possible further measures in case the governments of Europe want to go along that line. But this is a decision that has to be taken by the member states. And of course, it will be important to have a common decision. I think it's better to have a united common decision than just to have different positions from the different member states. That is why it is important that the member states that are now going to meet in the Foreign Affairs Council and also in the European Council next week, analyze the situation, consider the latest developments. For instance, this peace plan launched by President Poroshenko, see what is the reaction to this peace plan launched by Ukraine, and then they decide, because it's according to our rules, it's a competence of the member states, if it is or not justified at this stage going up in the level of the restrictive measures. One thing for me is sure, and I want to make it clear. I'm pleading for a common position of the member states, and I hope that the decisions taken will always be to obtain our goal, and our goal is peace. Sanctions are not an end in themselves. Sanctions are a way of trying to get a peaceful settlement.
Well, if I may just add to that, I think the European leaders have a very close eye on the developments in Ukraine, and we want to see actual de-escalation of the situation, not only words but also actions. And this means that while we discuss this issue next week when we meet in Brussels, we want a very actual report on the recent developments, and of course we would prefer de-escalation and no need for further sanctions. But having been discussing this issue with not only my Baltic colleagues but also other prime ministers over the past week, I believe if we don't see further clear de-escalation, there will be a need for very serious discussions, and I think European leaders are ready for that. We are most certain that the Commission has done its work to be prepared for the sanctions, but as President Barroso rightfully said, this is a question for the member states. EU Council to decide whether we go further or we have seen clear de-escalation. This is the choice. And of course, preferably, we want to see de-escalation, so we have a couple of days for that, and let's see.
So I believe that in 27 or 28th of June will be signed economical part of associative agreement with Ukraine and agreements with Moldova and Georgia. And today, Mr. Barroso introduced us with first step of economical sanctions. And general for Latvia, it is acceptable, but the question is not about sanctions. Question is peace in Ukraine. It's our real goal. And if there will be not the escalation of situations, that then Latvia will support this first step of third block of sanctions.
Yes, I don't want to repeat the same, but the Lithuanian position is the same with all member states, yes, and I support it.
Mr. President, dear Prime Ministers, thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, the press conference is over. Thank you for coming.